Welcome to Wise Beyond Bitcoin, where you come to understand the economic impact, potential, and opportunities of blockchain technology. My name is Lucas.
My name is Ryan.
And this is our new website, Wise Beyond Bitcoin, but we're going to get straight into it because we're excited to talk about something we don't often get to talk about in cryptocurrency and blockchain, and that's 19th century banking and money.
Yeah, yeah, well said, right? And who's the senator bringing this subject to our plate? Miss Warren.
And this is not financial advice. This channel is just about economic educational information. We're all learning this new technology together, and we're sharing information together. And this is not a direct attack or anything personal on Senator Elizabeth Warren. She represents a group of people who are lawyers, who are politicians, career, and have spent most of their lives studying the nuances of the traditional financial markets and other a whole probably
Law, politics, and
politics
and
and
healthcare systems, and
so to expect that generation, those people, to just understand blockchain technology and cryptocurrency on the same level that others have who have really spent the time and energy in the markets and studying the markets for years, it's not fair to assume that. So this is more just to help kind of explain, I'm sure this isn't the last time we're going to hear these kinds of arguments, but it's important to tell the full picture, because a lot of what she mentions with the poorly capitalized banks and the Wildcat notes isn't telling the full story. And there's actually major points that separate stablecoins and blockchain that make them completely unique and different from any of the pitfalls that you would find with the money in the specie in these times, which, like we talked about earlier, people often forget that when we talk about Wildcat notes, that was at a time when paper money was nothing more than a coupon to be redeemable in gold and silver. It was a commodity backed paper, where fiat currency, what people have been using for the 20th century and what she regulates and understands, is not built under the same incentives in the same market. So that being said, without further ado, let's get into it.
All right. Well, so here that's the key paragraph. She's comparing stablecoins to Wildcat notes of the poorly capitalized banks in the 19th century. This is known as the free banking era in U.S. history. So let's get into this. So yeah, there was a period where there were banks that created notes. They didn't have a lot of reserves. The reserves they did have were poorly capitalized, so their assets and liabilities didn't match all that well. They had more liabilities than assets, and a lot of people did get stuck holding these notes that were then worth, got discounted and haircuts, and then some of these banks went out of business altogether, and they were left with worthless notes. So there's some truth to this. There is risk in banking and in finance and in any kind of action in reality, really, just to be more general. But let's not go there. Let's not get metaphysical. But yeah, let's talk about what are the things that might have led the Wildcat banking era to be why would it be unstable? Okay, well, the big thing you look at when you look at free banking era is a regulation that the U.S. government had that said that you could not, and I'm sorry, state banks. These were state. This was a time when the federal government did not have a massive control of the banking system. That came later with the Civil War. This was a state-based system, and these banks, they were prevented from. They were chartered at the state level, and their charter prevented them from opening branches in the same state or in another state. So
they couldn't diversify their risk.
They did not. They could not have diversified their risk. Exactly. They were kind of centered in a locality. So if that locality had a drought or a crop failure, or if there was a war or a fire, a wildfire, a natural disaster, or a sickness, or maybe one of the big families, employers goes out of business. You could think of a lot of things that would destabilize a region. And if since the banks weren't branched, they were rooted in a locality, that if that locality had a problem, if there's risks that happened there, or some kind of a panic, that would spill over into the bank. And since the bank was not diversified, it had all its eggs in one basket, as it were. It led to crisis. And these moments of crisis were punctuated again and made worse by the same branch limitation, because it prevented other banks from merging together. So sometimes when you have a distressed bank, a stronger bank will want to buy them out and merge with them and take on their assets and their liabilities, right? And this was not possible because you couldn't have branch banking. It sort of broken that law, and so banks tended to fail. So these wildcat banks were cut off from sort of a lifeline, as it were, that would have been naturally available. So that created instability, right? And remember, this was all about these regulations about branch banking were aimed at creating stability, and they inadvertently created instability. The thinking is that if you have more than one branch, you can maybe become a dominant, have dominant market share, right? You could spread out, and you could start taking over the banking sector of that state. And then you would be a monopolist or a mere monopolist, right? And then that thinking would be, well, that's not good, because monopolies they don't help the consumer. There's all kinds of that, and then there's risks involved, because you're back to having all of your eggs in one basket. You're pooling risk, right? So you could see these regulations as being an attempt to deal with risk, but they actually did the opposite, and they grew the risks that were involved in the system. So for Elizabeth Warren to compare the crypto stablecoins that we have today with this highly regulated free banking system, but still regulated, to compare the two is a bit of an apples and oranges thing, because there's not a corresponding perverse incentive, to get technical, in crypto. In fact, it's the opposite. It's transparent. There's we can look at different projects, but Tether is well capitalized.
Which is funny that you say that, because at the top of this article, they bring this graph, which if you go to Tether's transparent breakdown of their reserves, that's what they got this from. That is the graph. So this is of Tether, and there are other stable coins, which is what you were alluding to, that there's diversification. There's not just one stable coin, that there's actually different stable coins that have different backings to prevent moral hazard. And that's another, I guess, the main topic of what we were saying is how through these regulations, how engineered stability brings chaos, corruption, and moral hazard. And all these calls to bring stability. Well, if we look at what that's done in the markets, it's actually done the opposite of bringing stability, which is exactly what you said. But here in Tether, look, 76%, boom, majority commercial papers. You've got fiduciary deposits, cash, reverse repo notes, treasury bills, and then what do they have the rest in?
Oh, cash, secured loans, corporate bonds, funds, precious metals, and other digital tokens.
So digital assets. So it's overcapitalized. I think what we read before is that if you look at the amount of Tether dollars in circulation and the assets backing it, that it's overcapitalized. So what's funny is that at the top of this article, they use a Tether breakdown, and then mention that there's a risk of not having it poorly capitalized. Comparing it to being poorly capitalized, when
it's very well capitalized.
But it's overcapitalized. It's very well capitalized, right?
If you scroll up just a little bit, you'll see a section on that paragraph about mentioning that there is no FDIC, no federal deposit insurance protection for stable coins.
Right.
Well, this goes to what you were saying about moral hazard, but it's not an unambiguously clear conclusion that FDIC insurance actually makes anything more stable or reduces risk. Because in fact, what you've got here is that you've got institutions that have a bailout guarantee. They know that these liabilities will be made whole. right? And that encourages them to, like you say, like you like to say, put it on black, put it all on black, right? Take double down.
Right.
You feel a little more, if you're taking a risk with money, you feel more free to take more risks if there's some other entity behind you saying, hey, we'll bail you out. We'll cover your liabilities if you get this wrong. And so, when we saw that with 2008, there was a lot of work on how the bailouts actually increase systemic risk in the financial system, because it led the bailed out firms and the others in their orbit to see, oh, well, look, AIG got bailed out. Oh, look, JP Morgan, and how all this money flows around. GM, for example, and so it actually led to more risk, more leverage, if you want to get technical. The system actually leveraged up. People took on more credit, more loans, more debt, more margin on their financial positions, because of the fact that they knew they had an implicit backstop by the Federal Reserve. So it's really kind of ironic to be advocating an FDIC solution to stablecoins, as if that is it's a problem. No, it's a solution in search of a problem, right? And it's actually not even a great solution, because we know that these kinds of policies create moral hazard.
Well, not only that, but let's talk about one of the benefits of the technology of blockchain, which we're just glossing over as if it's understood, right? Federal deposit insurance is there to make sure that your money is in that account because of the failures that banks have had in the past. There's been counterfeit, there is a whole host of other issues, but digital cryptocurrency and blockchain completely obfuscates those problems. There are many issues in traditional finance that are solved. That's why there's such a value in Bitcoin and Ethereum in these markets, because they are operating on a network. They're operating on a network that overcomes a lot of the problems in the legacy institutions and traditional finance. And that's that's an elephant in the room that's not being discussed. To sit there and throw out a stable coin isn't protected by FDIC. It's like, well, that's true, but
it's not a problem, because it's got
right.
Because there's private innovations that are happening that mitigate these risks. And a great example of this is with Wise token, right? So we all know about liquidity pools and liquidity farming, and that there's an impermanent loss risk, right? Well, Wise token has innovated a bounded liquidity feature.
Uniswap.
Oh, I'm sorry, not Wise token, Uniswap. There's a good reason why I would link Wise and Uniswap together.
Yeah. Well, no, there's actually, I thought that's where you're going with it, because you were also talking about locked liquidity.
That's right.
And I'm just going to just go straight up. Uniswap is the largest decentralized exchange built on the Ethereum network. Wise token is the most innovative smart contract decentralized finance money, and complete in of itself, that it's no longer it can be built on like Bitcoin or other networks, but it's complete in that it's no longer the keys are burnt, and all that all the Ethereum, it's an Ethereum bond, all that was raised is locked on the Uniswap decentralized exchange, much akin to how a bank would hold your gold or silver or your other asset. And anytime you came in to redeem your note, they would come and give you back that gold or silver. So,
but with an extra layer of security, because it's locked.
right.
Because the old problem with the promise to redeem was that you had to bet that the bank was solvent, and that they hadn't made any other loans or investments that were going to make them unsolvent, right? So that's called counterparty risk, right? They have your gold, where they're storing it, but there's this counterparty risk, because you don't know the other counterparties that this bank's tied to, and what their investments look like, and how safe your collateral or your asset really is, right? Whereas with blockchain, and it gives you the ability to have locked liquidity, ownerless locked liquidity that can't be rug pulled. It's always just sitting there waiting for you to cash in or cash out.
Pardon me. While you speak about that, I'm actually going to show the charts on Uniswap. Of course, this is V3, but you can see $1.78 billion. And there's Ether, there's USD, Tether, there's Tether we were just talking about, but you can see how much in stable coins. And DAI is another stable coin. You've got wrapped Bitcoin. So we've got this marketplace similar to exchanges or banks of the past, but more transparent than anything people have ever seen in the past. So the most transparent financial exchange, asset exchange system that we can know about, I suppose, in written history with technology that we're aware of. So this is remarkable. And what makes what we were talking about WISE, what makes WISE token so unique on this exchange is its locked liquidity. It locks it to where no one can remove the Ethereum that is on Uniswap. So anyone who has WISE token out in the whole ecosystem and chooses to use it on this project for DeFi application, bridge it to Harmony One, and or who chooses to go to use it for Binance Smart Chain or use it for Polygon Matic LP rewards. It's always, if you have a WISE token on the Ethereum network, we'll be able to redeem it for that Ethereum. And there are other projects that are also locking liquidity. You mentioned Shiba, and what that's doing, the Dogecoin killer. And there's a lot of there's some good information about it and its history and the people behind it. So it'll be interesting to see how that meme coin killer on the smart contract platform is able to compete against that legacy proof of work. It was supposed to be joke coin.
You're highlighting something here that we should circle back around to. We don't know what Shiba is how it's gonna turn out. We don't know about what Dogecoin is gonna look like in the future. Nope. We don't know any of the future for this because it's uncertain. It's undetermined. It's gonna be created, and we're gonna all find out together. But what we do have here is a great laboratory of experimentation. You can try different protocols. You can code your own protocol if you have something that you think is cool that no one else has thought of. And there's a lot of different projects that have different ways of setting up the incentives and the whether it's locked or it's locked liquidity or it's not, or vest if it's a farm. Is there a vesting period? There's stable coins. How are they collateralized? There's a lot of different ways this is structured. And we're running a big experiment, or we're running a bunch of little experiments, medium, whatever. We're running a bunch of experiments, and we're going to find out the result of which of these projects is viable and which aren't. But when you regulate this space and you say, okay, I'm going to create a system of rules, you have to be capitalized such that you meet these standards, and then you have to come get a charter or a license, and you're going to be subject to FDIC and all these other very, very overly engineered standards. You're snuffing out the experimentation that we have the space to have happen right now. And what that means is that you might get stability, but you might not, if you follow the arguments we made earlier about how engineered stability can actually create chaos.
Always has. So to expect a different outcome in reality
then is naive for sure. But let's table that moment for a moment and just say, let's assume that stability is achieved. Well, at the expense of stability, you've lost all of this knowledge of what other experimental protocols could have been, what they could have done.
More efficient, more potential. Yeah. There's a dynamic. You basically you trade stability, which is some superficial version of stability, because there's always people enforcing this stability on the other side.
And externalizing, like you said, this stability often comes as a cost from some third party, but it's a privatized profit for some narrow few, right? That's another part of this, where stability in this system often comes in the form of private profits and socialized losses, right? So we're shifting. It's not that we're minimizing risk and achieving true stability. We're just shifting the risk to some other entity, some other party, so that the bank or the corporation or the exchange or whatever corporation we're talking about can enjoy the bailout or the FDIC. But I don't want to get you off your topic. But I just wanted to make that point that this is about not about reducing risk as much as it's about shifting it.
Absolutely. And I mean, we've made some pretty good points. The idea is to let this market flourish. Look how dynamic it is. If you're Ethereum or Wise token or Hex or many other projects right now, Cardano is looking to have an amazing year. I encourage you to subscribe. If you have questions, feel free to drop in the comments or send us an email. Check out our website. We love to talk about the market in general, and of course, the role that cryptocurrency has, because it's important to know the difference between Bitcoin, proof of work, which was born out of the bailouts of 2008. And then the first it's not just proof of work, it's also proof of value. It kind of proves the value of the whole crypto market. That's really what Bitcoin does. It shows that this is a technology that's viable. It's what's allowed all these other better versions to exist. If Bitcoin were to have some huge systemic flaw in cryptographic technology of blockchain, then all of a sudden a lot of most everything else probably
would dip.
Would well, they'd all dip for sure.
If maybe go away.
There's coins like we talked about earlier. Ethereum's the largest and first smart contract blockchain platform. Binance coin, which is on the Binance smart chain now. And you've got Cardano, one of the founders of Ethereum that moved to Cardano, and another one to Polkadot, which are other smart contract blockchain platforms that are looking to do a lot. Cardano's been a lot in the news for good reason lately. And we intend to make a video and talk about each one of these in their own. So if you have one that you prefer us to get to first, leave it in the comments, send us a message, subscribe, all that good stuff. It's a pleasure to share this time and this energy. We do live streams every Monday night from 6 to 7. So don't forget to catch us then if you want to have an interactive talk. And shucks, beyond that, I'm going to say namaste. Have a beautiful day. I'll let you take it out, Ryan.
Yeah, well, thanks for hanging out with us while we talk about the 19th century banking system, because that's, I know, fascinating. And if you like this, catch us tomorrow, 6 to 7, and look out for more videos. Thank you.